How's it going, folks? It's been a little while, but here we are. I am Carter Hammond, and joining me this morning is Jonah Wheeler. Jonah, how are you?
Carter, how are you?
Good. It's been a little wacky lately, man.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit. So, basically things have been crazy for Jonah and I, which is a huge part of the reason why there hasn't been much locally sourced for a while. Like, we haven't done a show in like I think over a month now, which is, that's like a super bummer. But we are back today, which is great, and I'm glad I'm glad we finally made it. So yeah, I mean, well, Jonah got COVID. For anyone who doesn't know, Jonah survived the COVID. So
that was pretty interesting. I mean, I was asymptomatic at the time. It was scary. I had my grandmother in my house at the time, so it was like just trying to stay safe that whole time and just praying that I remain asymptomatic until they clear me, which I did, thankfully. But
right, yeah.
not everyone is as lucky.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know. I mean, definitely, like, I'm glad you were able to like get through that, and I'm glad your grandma's okay too, because that's like I probably care about that even more. Like, I know that you're a young buck. I have a feeling you'll do just fine.
I would have taken care of it.
yeah.
COVID taken me out now.
Right. Yeah. Not gonna let COVID mess you up. So at any rate, what we're sort of like going over today is the we haven't done like a local show in a while, and I felt like it was probably time that we go ahead and do that. So let's just get this let's pull this up here. So okay. For anyone who doesn't know, I mean, not that I think it's particularly possible for anybody to not know at this point, but this guy, Akil Garland, there's like a family trust, and 12 years ago he had set up 6 cottages that were just for temporary housing use for teachers at the Wells School, and which is a private school here in Peterborough. And he over the course of the past 12 years, he like built a whole bunch of other places on there, moved people in full time, started renting it out like year round, and just like started installing gas and electrical and stuff like that. And I mean, like, look, like, there are, we can get to the select board meeting from last night, which really kind of like, that's like Chief Walker kind of explains it, like exactly how bad things are. And for anybody that's interested, I can hop over, we'll play a little bit of it, but this is, and it's on their YouTube and their Facebook, so you can go watch it back, and I'll put a link in the description after the video. But it starts around 25 minutes and 30 seconds in, so we'll just get into this. But this is really egregious, and we'll talk about like why attacking the town and attacking the government is really doing nobody any good right now. But we'll get there when we get there. So we'll just roll on this for now.
It's no news to anybody.
Oh no! Come on, Facebook.
As soon as you
Killing me here.
And Chief Walker's here to bring us up to speed on where we are with residents that may be displaced or not, and what's happening up there. When we found out about this the end of last week, we met, and I have to say, this really threw us. We were all beside ourselves. with what we had to do. So, Chief, please share with us where we are now.
Sure. Thank you, Tyler. So as folks are aware, the approximately 25 residents living in the 14 or 15 residential buildings up at Walden Eco Village at 360 Hancock Road, which is where the lot is located, adjacent to the Wells School, just to give folks area for the landmark. There are approximately 25 residents up there. Last Friday, the town of Peterborough served notice to the landlord, Akil Garland, that those residential structures were not safe for habitation. There were some significant safety risks posed by the structures, their wiring and gas. I'll get into that in a minute. And that he was to have the residents removed no later than 4 p.m. This Wednesday coming up tomorrow, which would be the 16th of December. Since that time, we have met with a number of the residents, contacted by a number of the residents. Also had an opportunity yesterday afternoon for myself, the building inspector, the fire inspector, Rodney and Nicole, to meet with Akil Garland, the landlord up there, and sort of express some of our concerns and have a little bit of a discussion. I think the first thing that we need to make clear here is these are rental properties. Akil has leases. Our understanding, Akil has leases for all of these buildings. And according to newspaper articles, the rents range from $445 a month for the smaller casitas up to $1,400 a month for some of the cabins.
Okay, hold on. We're going to stop right there because so let's talk about those casitas for a second. You said $400 for a casita? Let's see if we can pull up a picture of what one of those casitas looks like. Because
$400, yeah, exactly.
Where was it? Let's see here. I believe it was on the Monadnock Beat article. So this is essentially a casita, right? They're sheds. Okay, they're straight up sheds. It's like a shed with a window on it. They're not properly insulated. As we'll see in a minute, like the electricity that runs to them is just daisy chained extension cords. To charge somebody $400 a month to live in a shed with no bathroom, no running water, like that alone is super messed up.
To think that he thought that was sufficient. He was like, oh, that's okay. It's just perfectly fine. These people are living, it's $400. They get to live in their nice little shed. It's totally fine.
Yeah. Like, no, that's like, this isn't a solution to the affordable housing problem. Like, this is like, that's the way that this gets touted, right? Amongst like the people that are supportive of the eco village. The whole thing is like
small little houses and people can live in them. It's going to be great. This is the reality of what that looks like here.
Right. Well, and the thing about it is this is what happens when you don't regulate anything, when you just go for it, right?
Let it happen,
yeah, right. Because the problem here is that, like, okay, if this was like tiny homes, right? Like you could those have a certain code standard that you meet. You're like going along with code the whole time, right? You're meeting that code. These don't follow any type of actual standards, like building standards. Like he just made them. He just put them there. And they're not actually approved by any of the town officials, so it's not like they're not legal buildings. And you can't just like erect random stuff on your property like this and think it's cool to just house people. And the main reason is because these people's lives are actually at risk. And like, just like, I just want to point out that, like, to anybody who actually wants to defend this, like, you know what affordable housing would be? $400 for a up to code full tiny house. That's starting to get somewhere, right? But that's not even going to happen because the zoning in town doesn't even permit that to exist. Like, we just can't even do that, right? Like, if you look at one of the things that they cite why this isn't okay, like why it's not all right that they're doing this, is because in the rural district, you're not, like, the zoning doesn't permit that level of density on a single plot. So it's like he did this completely extra legally. And the entire town was like, it's not like people didn't know this was happening, but, you know, like I did a thread on Twitter earlier today where I basically explained, like, look, like, it's, how pissed would we be, right? Like, really, how pissed would we be if we just started saying, okay, towns, just run around and randomly audit everybody for fire code, just all the time. Just rolling fire code audits on all buildings, right?
And then picked anyone not following it.
Right. Like that's because the town has the kind of like infrastructure or like, you know, staff or time resources to actually do that, right? Like Chief Walker is like, he's the fire chief as this at the same time as the main safety officer. Like, dude, they don't have time for that. So the whole thing is like, if you're going to blame the town, it's like, well, yeah, but you would never be okay with the town actually like doing all these things that you're asking them to do. And it's not necessarily the town's responsibility to come in and like provide a whole bunch of aid. Now, like, it's nice when they do, obviously. And I think there's plenty of outpouring in the community that shows that that's something that, like, you know, like they're in the comments on Facebook, there are plenty of people that are just like, I have an extra room, and like that's the right solution, you know what I mean? That's what you do. But it's not like it's on the town to do that. Now, additionally, if you go to the town for help, the amount of hoops that you have to jump through to get any kind of financial assistance is crazy. Because I've done this, so I know that when you go to the town of Peterborough, unlike other forms of support that I've run into, they'll actually ask you about like the assets of your family members. They'll ask you about like how much you can basically milk your family and your friends for before they're willing to give you money. There's like kind of a thing there that's like, how much help can you get from other people? You know what I mean? Like, and it's like that might not be the reason why it's there. It could just be there for any number of reasons. But the thing about it to me is like, worst case scenario, you're asking me that because like, okay, like if I have some like rich relative, like they could, you know, like that has money, theoretically could give it to me. But what if that person's an asshole and just doesn't feel like it? You know what I mean? Like all of a sudden I don't get any.
This person, yeah, you're not taking that into account at all. Yeah.
Right. So there's no like, and there's no. It's not like there's a clear shot in to get help and aid from the town on this. So just like, let's be clear about like the money side of things. But like, and we'll get back to this safety stuff because that's, I think, like, this is the safety stuff is a super concern. Like.
So within those leases, any landlord who leases property has a responsibility under New Hampshire to have that property meet the minimum housing standard. So what sort of led us to get up there and to be where we are was in July, Akil Garland, through the Garland Family Trust, I believe it was, approached the planning board for looking to subdivide his lot to provide individual lots for the houses, cabins that were already up there, as well as his casitas. Part of the preparation for that from the town's perspective was a site visit from code and zoning folks to take a look at what they had to assist them in working with the volunteer boards on that process. When the staff went up, they looked through that in the beginning, mid-November, came back, had an opportunity to review what they found on the site with what they actually had in the files from the original building permits and certificate of occupancies issued in roughly the 2005 to 2007 time period, as well as the variance that Akil Garland was given in 2010, I believe it was, by the planning board, that there were some significant discrepancies with what they saw and with what was supposed to be up there and with even what Mr. Garland had represented was up there. We then contacted Mr. Garland and made arrangements to go up and meet him on the site on December 1st. So building and fire officials went up. When that meeting started, we didn't enter any of the structures. We realized that there'd been a misstep in communication, and Mr. Garland didn't realize we wished to look inside the buildings also. So we rescheduled that meeting for Thursday, the 10th of December.
Yeah, so that's, and that, like, for anybody that's confused about why this took as long as it did, I mean, that's it right there. Like, it took how long it did mainly because Akil never did the work. Like, he never came to them with updates on what he was doing. He never told his tenants, hey, these people might need to get into your house. So that's why it took a little bit longer. That's why they didn't find this out on the 1st of the month. They found it out on the 10th of the month. Like, it's not like, this is all procedural stuff, and like, people can get mad about it, but it's like, if you're mad about that, then get mad about like small town government bureaucracy and actually put forward warrant petition articles or whatever that would change that stuff so that you don't have this problem, right? Like, that's it. That's how you solve that, right? Like, but right now to complain about it is kind of like, yeah, okay, but like, that's, we tolerate this bureaucracy all the time. Like, we just accept it like it's nothing.
Yep, exactly. So it's just like, pick your battle sort of thing. You gotta sort of just not complain at every last thing, every last terrible thing that happens, and this especially, it's if you don't research what's happening, if you don't look what's going on, there's so much nuance here. It's just, you could, and it's just, you're attacking the wrong person. It's, as you explained in the beginning, it's like they're all attacking the town, at least in the Facebook comments, or a lot of people are. And it's, if they understood the situation, they would know that the landlord here is the one at fault. He's the one building the buildings in a terrible manner. He's the one keeping maintenance on them and not giving the town updates and allowing these people to live in unsafe conditions. That's not the town.
Right.
I'm sure there's a lot of people living in unsafe conditions right now, but this is one that we have found, and this is one that we can, act on. And it's not like the town.
Yeah, well, and like, okay, so let's actually talk about those unsafe conditions, though, for real. Like, we've got some unsafe conditions right here. So, like, right up on the screen right now is I jumped forward a little bit in the video because we're running a little short on time today. This week's gonna be a bit shorter, but we did want to sort of like actually get into some of the, like, seriously, why is this so bad? And okay, so I mentioned earlier that they daisy chain their electricity. This is what that looks like. We're talking about like bare outlets exposed to the weather with like electrical tape wrapped around them. You know what I mean? Like, you got cords literally in the snow.
It's just, I've seen stuff like that at houses I've lived at before, and it's giving me PTSD of some sort, just to see the horrible wiring that we have to do, that people have to deal with all the time. I mean, I've just been in so many houses where the electricity has been done like this or something like that, where as a renter, you're not in a position to go after your landlord, or you're not like in a position to go talk to someone about it. Like, you need this house. They're being very quote unquote very generous to you in some way. Like, they're giving you a deal or something like that. They're giving you a place to stay, and you take, like, as a renter, you take safety concerns like this and you sort of just wipe it under the rug because, oh, I have a place to stay now. It's so hard to find a place to stay. It's just like you end up living with stuff like this, and it's just reminding me of all the times I've lived in houses where we've had to lived in houses in this city where we've had to deal with stuff like this, and landlords that keep their apartments like this. It's horrible. It's just horrible.
Right. And like, the important thing is like for folks to understand is like, there's no, like, we don't, like, nothing happens unless it gets reported, right? Like, so like, all these landlords, like, they do all this bullshit, and if you don't report an issue to the town, if you're a tenant and you don't say anything to them, like, they can't, there's no recourse. There's nothing that they can do. Now, like, they literally had like, there are people that brought this to the town's attention. I know this. I spoke to somebody who is from there, and they told me that they absolutely brought this to the town's attention. You know, back during the summer months, it was my understanding. And, you know, like, yeah, they could do something. Sure, I guess. But again, it's like, it's also wrapped up in the bureaucracy and the procedural nature of local government and the fact that they don't have enough resources. So it's like, if you want to be mad about the timing of things, be mad about the fact that we don't give our government enough resources to actually do everything that we're demanding they do, right? That's like,
it always goes back to that core issue is we don't have a tax system that supports people in the way that we need it to. We don't need, it's just,
yep.
Exactly. This state, I mean, even those, I saw that, just a little bit of a sidebar. I saw that on Twitter when we saw the map of state legislatures and how they're paid. We're the only state that's black. It's the only state where it's like we work full time, but
yeah.
we paid absolutely nothing, and that it just all goes back to that core issue of
right.
tax system. Yeah.
We do all this weird shit, and we just expect everybody to like we just expect the communities to just do it, just fix it for people. You know what I mean? Like, that's like. It's insanity to me, because it's like, okay, who do you think is going to pick up the tab here? Like, who do you think is going to do this? Who do you think is going to just provide housing for people? Just some random NGO? Like, just some random nonprofit in town? Like, dude, the River Center can't shoulder all that. Come on. Like, give me a break. Like, I don't understand this. Like, there's no
thought behind it. It seems like it's more of a reaction to just something horrible that people are seeing, and they don't really know how to handle it. It's like, this is horrible. Deal with it. Instead of like actually, oh, okay, so this is how we do it. Like, sitting, like, that's a problem with a lot of things, and we saw that with, you know, the Black Lives Matters protests. Like, people aren't sitting down, taking the time to just really process what's going on and like understand how we could find a solution of some kind.
Right. And I think it's also like, it more broadly leads us into the whole issue that, I mean, like, that you and I have talked about separately from this, which is basically like the whole left eating itself issue and infighting that's getting worse right now amongst the progressive left with the whole Medicare for all thing that's, you know, with Jimmy Dore being an idiot. And you know, like, look, I guess, like, I understand it, but we're getting to this weird point where within the left where everybody's like, I mean, I guess it's not like it's surprising, but like the whole purity testing thing is just getting to a really, like, it's getting to a grotesque level. And like, I'm getting turned off by like activism that I would normally support, because I feel like it's not like it gets into way too into the rhetorical components of like messaging, and it doesn't actually, like, it's not centered on like how do we make this not be anymore. It's centered on how this is messed up. You know, it's like, okay, you can't, you know,
we can't focus on what is all the time. We have, like, we know what's wrong. At the end, like, we're all living. So I've said this like a lot. We are all living suffering. If you're a leftist who is a working class person living in Peterborough, New Hampshire, who's working 2 or 3 jobs, struggling to survive in a house that you can barely afford, having to pay for heat and all of this extra, you are struggling to survive. And you don't really care what the messaging around Medicare for all is. You know, like, and this was the thing about Trump supporters too. Trump went out and said, I'm going to give you universal health care. I'm going to be a new type of Republican. We're not going to cut entitlements. People saw that, even though he didn't have a genuine plan, as the message towards, oh, here's how I'm going to get health care. I'm living in a situation where I have literally nothing. I have nothing to lose. He said, what do you have to lose supporting me? People had nothing to lose supporting him. They had literally nothing to lose, and they still have nothing to lose. and we're pushing people to their limits. And if we want to win as the left, I think all we have to do is just play to those limits. Just be like, we're going to end that suffering. It's not about like, oh, we have to change this messaging on this thing. We have to do this and this and that. That's just bringing the academia of just, you know, those college conversations that you have about the definitions of leftism or something like that. That those kind of conversations are not what wins you elections. And you don't focus on the ideology, or you don't tell a voter to read theory. You just cater to that voter's needs, cater to that person's needs. Start running your government around people's needs and fixing their suffering, addressing the suffering that they have. And then you can win, and you can hold power, and then you can implement the solutions. And once we have power, maybe we can have a conversation about the messaging behind Medicare for All. But I feel like first we have to win, because without winning, then we have nothing. You know, how are we going to change the tax system to allow community support for these people getting evicted without a change in the tax system by retaking the state house and the state senate and the governor's seat? And how do we do that? Well, by not infighting and unifying as the left around the vision of ending people's suffering. Like, we all have core principles. Let's stick to those principles instead of debating what they are.
Yeah, and I think, you know, the other thing too is it's like, all right, so if the idea is like ultimately to have power and like actually wield it, like you got to prove to people that you actually know how to wield the power if you do have it. And what's the best way to do that? Tell everybody what you're going to do when you have it, and then do exactly that. And that's why I get frustrated. Where it's like, you know, I don't want to see somebody saying like, you know, we like just talking about like saying, you know, don't hope isn't enough for, you know, like slamming on the thoughts and prayers thing. Like, yeah, okay, word. But like that's like, sure, you can disagree with, you can feel like other people are like poo-pooing what's going on, but that's a waste of your time, right? Like that's a waste of our time to talk about like I'm not necessarily talking about any of this because like I want to convince people in town to not attack the town. I don't really care about that. What I care about is getting people to change what they do about it, right? Like that's what I'd rather see, because it's like, if you actually give a shit, if you actually care, you'll come out with a warrant petition article and you'll fight for it, and you'll explain to people why this taxation isn't fair. You know, we don't need to diagnose anymore, right? Like this is the thing. Like, you can sit there and you can like it's like the left has depression, and like I, you know, like saying this, like I can speak on this because I literally just like went through a mental breakdown myself in this fall into winter. This has been terrible for me. And like coming out of that, my thinking is like, every time that I go back and try and deeply examine myself and try and figure out what went wrong, or like, you know, put my past under a microscope or whatever, right? Every time I do that, I just go further and further down the spiral of depression and anxiety, and right? Like it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. It feeds itself. It's, you know, this is how that works. Yeah. It's just negative energy and it pulls you back down. Right. And what has helped me and is helping me is to consistently think, not like, okay, like maybe diagnosing the problem is good because in a sense, because you know what to like, you know what angle you should approach something from. Like it tells you like, okay, this is the perspective that's going to work best to make this point. Like, great. Like, okay, cool. Like if I know like what condition I'm experiencing or whatever, like if I know like what is like specifically what is ailing me, you know, like what the biggest issue in my personal experience is, or somebody else's personal experience, right? Because we all have different problems, right? That. And it's like a societal type of sickness that I think we deal with, where it's just like we're so fueled by the outrage, we don't realize that we've become the angry Trump supporters ourselves. Where there's like we're the same, Anytime we're just sitting there like yelling and like that's not doing anything anymore. Like that's doing nothing, and we're exactly the same as the Trump supporters. So stop that. Like focus instead on exactly what can I do, you know, like to get this stuff in. Is there something on like the legislative request list? Like LSRs, like go through that stuff, see what you can support, figure out how to like get people in your community that don't normally care about it, like government or politics or whatever, but care about housing. Link those things, like find a way to link those things and actually show them like, yeah, you want to do this? Like, I actually know that this is how you fix this problem. And it has nothing to do with politics. It just has to do with like, here's why this doesn't work. Here's how it will work. And I'm sorry that that's a left approach, but it is. Like I'm sorry that we're right, but we are.
I know, like, yeah, exactly. But that is the only way, because at the end of the day, so many people are either yelling at each other or disaffected with what's going on, and that's like the two realities that we see in America, or at least I see anecdotally living in Peterborough. Is you either got someone who doesn't care at all and knows that there's problems, knows that the problems exist, and they're living those problems, but they don't really care to seek out solutions or diagnose a problem of any kind, or you have the people that just want to continuously diagnose the problem and yell about the problem, or yell at the other side for creating the problem, or not even the other side, just people in power for creating the problem, and not actually fix it. Like I've experienced this in the election. It was just like, okay, well, we're yelling about all this stuff, but where's like the legislation behind what we're doing here at Surge? Or like, where's the legislation behind this conversation on whatever we're talking about, the reallocation of funds? Like, where's what funds are we going to reallocate? You know, yeah. like what are we going to do exactly so that once we win, or once we have the chance to actually do something, we're not like researching once we're there, or you know, figuring out what policy position we're going to put in place once we're there. And so, because we were diagnosing the problem the whole time, and then we found ourselves in power, and now what do we do?
Yeah, and it's important to understand that, like, look, like, it's like the solution is not to just like, you know, in the broader sense, like if we want to take a national example, it's like, don't just buy into Jimmy Dore's whole like protest vote thing, because that's not actually like it doesn't mean anything, and it's just performative, and like all it does is undermine any type of like cooperation that could exist in Washington. So it's like there's other things that can be done, and it just doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make any, the whole thing doesn't make any sense when we have like 7 members of Congress who are like those core progressive Justice Democrat members, 7 or so members are those like core Justice Democrat members. I just don't understand the thought behind getting Medicare on the vote on the floor and then having it lose, as if that gives them more power.
Yeah, it doesn't help.
Or a GOP speaker with a Democrat House. Like, none of this helps. Like, those AOC talks about the committees and getting the $15 minimum wage and this and that and whatever, and all the things that she was going through. All of that seems a lot more tangible, and seems like it would help them grow their power a lot more in Congress than failing a Medicare for all vote.
Well, and what does this all get back to, right? Like why bring this up in the context of us actually talking about a local issue? Well, and the whole point is like, well, go ahead here. So yeah,
well, I was just going to say, I think that it's just people looking for immediate solutions, as we're seeing here in town. It's like, I need this right now. Like we've been here for 2 years. Or whatever. AOC get elected in 2018. We should already have Medicare for all right now. We should already have all of this right now, because they're talking about big visionary things, and that she was saying that we're going to have this in, and whatever, not realizing that every power structure that exists in that town and throughout this whole country is against everything that they're doing in Washington right now, and
stands against us here as well. And that's the whole point, is that It's
Exactly.
wealthy people. Like it's wealth. It's like that's the problem. Everybody, like, this is the thing we always dodge, right? Is that, like, the reason Medicare for all isn't going to work the same way attacking our town for what happened isn't going to work is because they don't actually have a say in the solution of the problem. We do if we tell them how to change what they do so that their procedures are better. So, like, it's on us. Like, the onus is on us as voters, as people that are engaged in our society. We're the ones that have to do that. If we have a problem with that, then, like, we have to realize that, like, and the like, you know, corporate CEOs or hedge fund managers or landlords, right? Like, these are the people that, like, hold the wealth. Okay, like, these are the people that, like, win from the way the system is set up currently. Like, and they've done it in such a way that, like, all government is basically serving those interests at this point. Like, there's no, like, capitalism is so deeply ingrained in the way that our everything works. We just, like, it's almost like government is there to serve capital. It's not to serve people, it's to serve capital. And if that's the case, then if we want the government to, like, respond to something like a slumlord, like, never clearing his property for, like, all of the people that he put on it, like, if we want to give like the best type of recourse, we need to understand that, like, attacking the town on an off seat, like when we can't even vote about it, is stupid. It's just a waste of time. Like,
We're thinking the town is some separate entity from ourselves. We
Right,
are the
it's not.
government.
Yeah,
we are the town. As citizens, we are a part of the government and how that process works. It's like the total disconnect, or just the separation of these entities, is just a big part of the problem. I mean, I see this on the national level. Like, when people are observing cable news and watching it as some drama TV show, or like the theater of politics, where they can just sit back in their house, go to work, and then come home and observe it and get angry at whatever politician they're going to get angry at. It separates the government from the people itself. It's like, oh, that's just the national government. I don't really have to worry about that. I, as one person, can't pressure my member of Congress, even though you're probably one of 100,000 in your congressional district, and you can build that community around whatever you're frustrated at your member of Congress at, to pressure him to then vote and support that bill, no matter what his ideology is. Because at the end of the day, they are indebted to their constituents for giving them that position, and they will always cater to their constituents. If you pressure them,
and most importantly,
that was the whole idea of Bernie Sanders. He was going to get in office and then pressure every one of these members of Congress to vote for Medicare for all by rallying people and organizing them on a national level as a national leader. And
I think the thing about it too is that, like, even now, like, they don't listen to voters really. Even, like, they don't even necessarily listen to voters anymore. You know who they listen to? They listen to labor organizers. They listen to the people who are in charge of the unions. Like, that's it. That's where the power is. Like, I'm sorry. So, like, if we want to actually deal with this, we need to put our energy back into unions. I really, really think that's going to be, like, that's the way we can leverage political power, because that's actually, like, that organized labor can literally just, like, put the stop on production. And that's it. That's the thing that will.
That's why they want to attack them so much. That's ever since, you know, the FDR in the 30s. It's been all against the unions. How can we make sure that organized labor doesn't happen in this country, so that people don't organize around us exploiting them to unimaginable levels? And that's what's going on right now. It's just I really do think that they're pushing people to their limits. They can't do this for an extended period of time. People are just, it's not 2008 anymore. People don't have that sense of hope, or, like, that sense of the future. We're in the middle of a global pandemic. They've got all of these things going on. People are being injected with stress and just fear. And I don't see how the country survives living 2 more years like this. It just doesn't seem sustainable.
Yeah, well, I mean, and I, you know, for my part, like, I don't know. I mean, like, I don't know. I genuinely ask myself why I even stay here anymore.
Yeah. I asked that question a lot. It's just like, why am I even in the
Why do I
United
care? Why do I try? Yeah. Why, like, and I mean, that's like, and that's the thing is like, I want like, and I mean, we got to get going here. So this is like, well, obviously we're not done. We're going to keep coming back. We're going to keep doing this. But like, I do really want people to sit with this, like this last little bit here, that like, okay, there's an age gap between Jonah and I for sure. There's a pretty big age gap. I'm 31. Jonah's 18, 19.
10 to 15 years old.
Yeah. So you've got two distinctly different generations right here, literally both saying, I don't know if it's worth it to keep going here. And like when you've got millennials and Zoomers basically saying like, not worth it. Like, sorry, done. Like this state is going to die. This state is just going to die. And that's what's going to happen. And like, I'm sorry, but like, we'll see how the next 2 years go, but like I really do think the libertarians actually got what they wanted. I do think they functionally right now they have the libertarian utopia that they want. Like
I was thinking that while you were describing this landlord situation, I was like, this is libertarian utopia.
Yeah,
right
this is what libertarians want.
This is what libertarians want. It's just, no government where landlords and people, as private citizens, can take and exploit people to just crazy levels and not have, and without accountability on anything. They don't have to, there will be no entities for people to complain to if the electricity is put in wrong because, you have housing. It's just all catering to the wealth. And
right. And that's,
people should sit with the fact that, like, what are we trying to build here? You were working the 8 to 5, the 9 to 5. Like, we can continue to participate in this economy as if nothing is going wrong, as if people are not suffering to the craziest levels ever seen, or the craziest levels we've seen in a long time, or we can stop, organize the labor. Just get everyone organized and overthrow in some way the system that is in place, because otherwise we're just going to continue to work for this system that is killing us. And
I mean, I think at least in New Hampshire you got to figure out how to turn the libertarian right into the socialist left. That's the big gamble, dude. Either like you figure out how to change their side, how to use populism to change their side, or you figure out a way to get more people from your side to just flood the state and just like DDoS the snot out of the I don't know what to
not much. There's not much.
Right. Like I don't know what to say about it. And it's like, so my thing is like, I'll keep doing like whatever strategy we need to do here for the time being, but it's like I really do want folks to understand that there's going to be a limit to this. Like there's really going to be a limit to this where like eventually people like Jonah and I are just like, nope, you know what? Like, why the hell would I stay here when I could go live somewhere like Rhode Island, where they have they literally just put 50, it's like, that's not even 2 hours away. And that they just put 15 super progressive people into their state house, everything is blue and they're dragging it left by pulling it. This is stupid. Okay. Even, Vermont is better in this way. There's so much accommodation that's that gives you the support that you'd need if you want to be a leftist living in New England. You could go, you don't have to go far. And it's why keep spinning your wheels in this situation? So I just I want folks to consider that and ask themselves why, what is it we're doing here? And how exactly do we actually fundamentally shift things to a way that we don't alienate young people and actually keep the state alive? Because otherwise, it's all going to collapse. So
very quickly.
Very quickly. Well, Jonah,
it's always a pleasure, Carter.
It is. I know this was a big glum, but it's seriously I'm glad that we get a chance to talk about this stuff, and we'll keep coming back to it. This is going to be sort of it's always a through line. So
I'm sure this isn't the last affordable housing fight that we'll be having. So
dear Lord, no. So anyways, well, dude, it was really good to see you today, folks. I hope y'all enjoyed. Obviously you can support the channel on Patreon, follow us on Twitter, subscribe, hit the little bell for notifications so you can find out when we go live, which should be more frequently. Getting back into the swing of things, so we'll see. 2021 is going to be interesting.
That's for sure. 22 will be even more interesting too. We got a whole midterm election wave coming up for us. In the middle of the Biden presidency.
Absolutely ridiculous. Ugh.
Thank you, Ryder.
Yeah, man. All right. Well, we will catch you all probably next week. So take care, everybody.